my father was working, so at this time he could, and since it's such a trustworthy environment, such a loving community, he knew where I lived. He was very much always coming to different gatherings in our our private homes. In the temple was separate, and and our homes, our private homes, were separate. So we were living separately from the temple. But Vinay, one day he came to my house, and I opened the door, and I see him there. I was so shocked that he was in front of me. Because I had because actually I was alone at home, and he knew that. He knew I was alone at home, and he entered the house. And at that point, he wrapped his arms around me, and he started making me extremely uncomfortable. But I had no way of saying no. I didn't know what to say at that point.
You were just 12 years old.
Yeah, I was so manipulated by him, even into thinking that we're in some kind of relationship, even though it went beyond all kinds of logic. And after that incident, every single day he would call, make sure that I speak to him. Every single week, at least 3 to 4 times a week. I can even say every other day, 3 to 4 times a week. Either he would come to my home, or he would meet me in school, and he would pick me up from school and take me in his car to the woods. Where we lived was a very woody area, forested area. So we could go, if he could take me, he could take me into a very dark portion of the woods, and nobody would be around. And he would take me even to his own apartment. He would literally kidnap me. And in that time, he would take my clothes off and rape me repeatedly, even if I screamed, even if I was just not, even if I didn't want, absolutely, even if I was screaming against him, he was just continuously manipulating me to do whatever he says, to the point where I was just a slave to him.
Yes.
And I would just in order to get rid of him, or just end the whole thing, I would do whatever he says.
Yes, and this is how these pedophiles and attackers groom their victims. They get the trust of the victims, they get the trust of the family, they get the trust of the community, and then they slowly lure them away from their family, their community, so they're completely isolated. And I'm sure that's exactly how you'd experienced it, where even if you wanted to share this with someone, if you had wanted to cry out for help, you felt too isolated. I'm sure this is the case for you.
Exactly. And honestly, that's really the truth. I was absolutely alone. I was absolutely just not even able to speak to anyone, because Vinay had taken over my entire life, everything. Whether I wake up in the morning, whether I go to sleep, whether I am eating, whether I'm studying, everything he wanted to know, and he wanted to know where I was doing it, why I was doing it, and he wanted to.
So he had full control of you, everything.
Yeah,
even when you were not with him, he was still controlling you. And because you were too young, you weren't mature enough to understand, he was easily able to manipulate and control you.
And I was not able to speak to my parents. He told me not to speak to my parents, and he would threaten. And because he was everything in my life, and he had completely taken over everything in my life, he could just do whatever he wants. If he says Swamiji is wrong, Swamiji is an abuser, even though that absolutely devastated me, because my guru was everything to me. And even
you knew it not to be true. Yes. You knew that he was just lying, and you knew that he was simply trying to attack Swamiji, but at the same time, you were too helpless.
Exactly. He was manipulating me to turn against Swamiji actively. And he was telling me that, trying to convince me that Swamiji was wrong. And I would fight him for it. I would say, no, I do not want to stop going to the temple. I do not want to stop talking to my parents. He would say that my parents are puppets and that Swamiji was brainwashing them. He would say that everything that he was doing, that he was manipulating, he was brainwashing, he would say that Swamiji was doing all that. And even when I fight him, he would become so angry. He would scold and literally verbally abuse me, and then he would not talk to me for 2 days. And I had nothing to do because I had broken all of my relationships with my mom, with everybody. I couldn't say what he was doing. I didn't know what he would do next. So I couldn't even say the truth of what was going on. And he started feeding me all of these absolute lies about Swamiji, about the Sangha, that I knew was absolutely false, but I couldn't say anything at that time because of how much he had complete control over me.
So at this time, he was basically grooming you to be one of the pawns in his plan to attack Swamiji, to attack the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and to destroy the entire ASMT community.
Yes, and I would like to really like to emphasize that this was in the summer of 2008 and 2009 when he was actively trying to manipulate, brainwash me before any even sign of attack was happening. He was using me. He was actively trying to use me again as a pawn in his conspiracy against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. And he told me that it's not just me.
So there were other victims like you then?
Yes, I'm very sure of it. He told me. And he told that I'm not the only victim, or he told that actually that he himself admitted that he was having multiple relationships. And he would even ask me, like, are you jealous? And all this, like, sick.
Just manipulating you and then making sure that you know that you're replaceable for him. So you continually want to come back to him and continually want to do what he says.
Yeah. And I couldn't do anything at that point. I was so lonely. At that point in my life, I literally my whole health collapsed. Like and my parents would see this. I was starting to lose weight, lose hair. I was not talking in school. Actually, at that time, I had even gotten sick and I was not able to go to school. And I would spend half the day sleeping. And my parents did not know what was going on with me. They were obviously so concerned with my health. But at the same time, and they saw the signs of how Vinay was manipulating. He was being so intrusive in the temple itself. And so to the point where he would to the point where he would publicly embrace me, publicly, as if nobody would see it and people would just accept that. But of course my parents were so alarmed. At that point, I couldn't say anything to my parents. I was feeling so alone every single day. And Swamiji was the only one who I held on to in my heart. Every single day, I would write to Swamiji in my diary, whatever, even if something would happen in what I thought was a relationship with Vinay, I would write to Swamiji. I would say, this and this happened. We had this fight. He's saying this against you. I don't know what to do. Please help me, Swamiji. Even if we had a fight, or if that day I considered as a good day when I was absolutely brainwashed and manipulated, I would tell Swamiji everything and write it down. I would hold Swamiji so close to me because even though I was manipulated, brainwashed, everything, he was the Supreme Pontiff of Hindus. Swamiji had literally become my god. He was my guru, and as that role in my life, that literally protected me from having mental collapse, from going into, from even maybe committing suicide at that point, and um, several times after. And also, um, he was everything that I held on to. So
Yes.
whenever Vinay would tell me that he would start to hint at this conspiracy, I would become so powerless.
Yes,
And
it
I
must
would
have been really painful to hear the one being the one person who has been holding you, who's been protecting you, who's been nurturing you, caring for you, empowering you, to be abused like that. That must have been
exactly.
completely
It was
heartbreaking for you.
just devastating, and my world, like every single time he said something, I was just so, I would feel I would like, every single time Vinay had started to speak to me and started to convince me and started all this, I would just be so angry and throw the worst tantrums. And but I
So
had
from the
no,
beginning, you knew that whatever he was saying was a lie. You knew that whatever Vinay and his conspirators were planning and
it was
doing was
absolutely a lie.
completely a lie.
The exact words he said against Swamiji was saying that what he was saying was that the words I remembered that burned me so deeply that he lied was that he was trying to say that Swamiji, my guru, was a, like he was actually trying to say that that Swamiji also was having relationships with women like how Vinay was having. And I was so clearly seeing that he was trying to project this absolutely false thing, which he was doing, which Vinay
Mm-hmm.
was, the character that Vinay was, the womanizer and the child molester and child rapist
Pedophile.
and the most disgusting criminal. He was trying to put that on Swamiji and take over the entire Sangha. And
And that's
later on,
exactly what he tried to do, right?
yes,
When he, yes, you can share about how the situation had escalated and how finally you had uh, come out of the situation despite it escalating to the point of him trying to kidnap you and take you away from your family. You can share a little bit about that.
yes. So, despite having so many fights with him, everything, I was not able to stop my relationship or stop, talking to him completely. One day, he told me to pack my things, and at this point, he was already, even because my parents had alarmed the administrators in the temple. Um, because my parents had taken extreme like measures to notify the administrators of the temple, ultimately it was escalated to Swamiji. Vinay was banned from the Sangha, from the entire SMT community. And um, they started to investigate what he was doing more than the what he the kinds of things that he was doing with me. He was
So,
entirely
sorry, I just want to reiterate for the viewers that your parents had some suspicions about him, but they did not know to the degree and
no,
level that he was abusing you.
no, they didn't know because I didn't tell anything, and it was very much well hidden and not. And as responsible members of the whole community, they're not continuously around me. So I can. So if he wanted, he can simply manipulate, kidnap me to some place, and they would not know. And I didn't tell them
So,
to.
despite not knowing the extreme that this situation had gone, the administration had taken such an extreme action of banning him just from what
Because
they
of
can
my
assume is just him giving you a little extra attention.
little extra attention and communication with a minor. This was like they they put a full stop to Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and also the administration of the temple and the ecosystems there had just put a full stop to him even interacting with with me. And they removed him. They made sure that he would not be able to contact me. But because of how much he manipulated me, he was still in contact with me through my devices, through the laptop and phone which I had. And
And your family didn't know about this at the time?
No. And he would tell me to, create, code words when to tell when my parents were like in around the room, or he would tell me not to call him by his name, or he would tell me to call him like a secret name, and he would also call me a secret name. It was an absolutely, as I'm remembering
very manipulative
it now,
situation.
really manipulative situation, and it's just criminal to the point of, I can't believe that I survived. So one day what happened was it came to the point where I was not only I was just physically and emotionally everything exhausted in November of 2009. And I was so exhausted. And one time he just came he was chatting with me online, and he said, it's come time that we have to start. He said, pack up your things, whatever you need, and
sorry, one moment. Start what?
He said, he said it's come time. And
so he was implying that it was come time for him to execute his theme, his plans to attack the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, to destroy the ASMT community using you as the pawn.
Yes, exactly. And he was saying, and that's exactly what he said. He said that, he said, pack up your things. I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to come. He gave me a location, and he said, come here, pack up your things, pack up just, whatever you need, and come to this location. I'll pick you up. And then he said that you're going to file a false case against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. And he told me that he wanted to take over the entire Sangha from Swamiji, and just and then like literally put away Swamiji and just destroy and eliminate him entirely.
Wow, so you must have been heartbroken at this point.
I was just devastated. Of course, I just knew that I could not do that. And it just came to the point where I collapsed. Really and entirely, but I collapsed. I decided that I could not do that. And even though he told me that, I told him I would do that. I told him I would come. But instead, I wrote the entire thing, every single detail in a letter, and I walked to my parents and I just told them the entire truth of what happened.
Wow.
Of what he was doing.
Everything that he had done to you, he was trying to pin that on Swamiji just for the sake of destroying the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, his entire mission, and eliminating him and imprisoning Swamiji.
Yes, that is exactly it. I'm absolutely sure of it, especially with the events escalating. And after that, as I was working to file a restraining order against Vinay, how he had suddenly become desperate because one of his pawns, and his probably the one he was depending on to fight for him, one of his pawns had failed. He started escalating all attacks in all directions, and he filed.
Just one moment. Before, you had said that he had tried to kidnap you and take you in, and you had agreed. At that point, you had told your parents everything. So what happened exactly after that?
What happened? I stopped all communication. My parents had just taken away my devices for, as in not taken away, but I stopped my communication with Vinay, And at that point, I had been, I was just extremely, at that point, just taken into their lap, taken into a lap of protection. And I wanted, nobody told me to do anything. Nobody told that I should, like, nobody told me, that I have to fight or that I have to not fight. But I decided that I have to do something against him for what he did to me. So my parents helped me file a restraining order against Vinay in January of 2010.
So this was immediately after he tried to kidnap you.
Yes. Yeah. He tried
so
to.
you filed the restraining order, and then and stopped all communication with him. At that point, did he try to contact you again, even despite the restraining order being imposed?
He tried to contact me, but I was not speaking with him. And my parents, I think, had spoken to him, then said please don't talk to her. And I did not speak to him at all. But there's several instances where he called. He was giving missed calls and blackmail in so many different ways in the subsequent months, as things were just escalating. And I was seeing what Vinay was hinting at me for so long, that there's so many people, and what he was trying to tell me, what he was trying to convince me, he was then I could see how that literally erupted across the entire USA and in India with all of the media. Everything
So
I saw.
in January of 2010, you would file the restraining order against him, and then in March of 2010, same year, Vinay and all his co-conspirators had filed a false case against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism.
Yes.
Basically, the exact same thing that he had done to you. He had filed a case against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, saying that he had done that to an unknown victim.
Yeah. And in the USA, the cases that Vinay filed against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the temple, all of them, he was actively saying that he was the victim of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, which is absolutely absurd. And because, of course, I know this because I was his victim. And because I wasn't there to play that part of victim for him, he started to escalate and file at least 4 to 5 cases in the state of California against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism.
So at this point, he must have been desperate, as one of his key pawns had fallen through, had decided to break away. I'm sure many of his other victims also were able to escape, were able to realize that they were getting manipulated by Vinay and his co-conspirators. And so at this point, he was desperate to continue his attack, to play out his attack on the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Nityananda Parameshwaran.
Yes, exactly. And over the course of the next few months, I would see the most heartbreaking things, where the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was arrested, and for 53 days, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was arrested, and for 53 days he was tortured in prison. And I had to see the media hate speech against him, and it absolutely broke my heart, that because I could see everything that was going on.
Yes, you knew the truth. You knew that everything
the truth was that I was the center of the truth, because I was the victim. And of course, there are many victims, but I knew the truth, and I could see what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was
Yes, you were the victim of Vinay Bardwaj and the other anti-Hindu militants, but unfortunately, they were not the ones who were arrested. They were not the ones who were put in prison. It was the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Nityananda Parameshwaran, who was arrested for the actions and criminal behavior of these anti-Hindu militant forces.
Exactly. And the truth being that even though the victim, that I was a victim that they wanted to put as a pawn, they didn't have a victim. There was no victim. They were still able to arrest the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, put a media attack against him. Their criminal activities went to the point of invading personal it's still, I could see, and I was just heartbroken at that point, seeing Swamiji go through so much for me ultimately, and for the other victims, and protecting us. He was not the aggressor. He was not the person who raped anyone. And he's absolutely not even capable of that. And he stands as our guru and God. But
yes,
he,
despite facing so much of attack, so much of harassment, abuse, and illegal persecution, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was the only one who was there to protect you, to take care of you, to attend to you and all the other victims in the ASMT community, all the other children and women who faced similar attacks like you.
I'm very clearly, also, I'd like to say again, I'm not the only one. I'm lucky enough to be able to be here today, protected by Swamiji and empowered by Swamiji to share my story with the world, share it with all of you. But I'm really saying to all of the viewers, I'm not the only one. There are so many victims just like me who were to the point even where they were so manipulated, so brainwashed, where they had not even, they were just absolutely silenced, and they couldn't do anything to they had to, and I don't know where they
share
are.
Their story and get justice for what they went through.
Yeah, and ultimately there are people who had to disidentify almost with the ASMT community and with being devotees and disciples of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism because of how much they manipulated, how much the terrorists, the anti-Hindu militant forces had manipulated them. They had to
give them so much of insecurity and fear for their life about what will happen to them.
Exactly. And I know because I was in that position. If by Swamiji's grace, he had not stepped in at that point, banned Vinay from, speaking to me, if I had not been protected, and if the temple administration had not gone to all extents to make sure, then I know that I would have had to, that would have had to happen to me, and I would have had to.
You would have also been silenced. You would have also been just another victim.
And who knows, maybe, sold off to a child trafficking ring by now. Honestly, I'm saying I know there are other victims, children, women, and so many others who actually, I know that, and unfortunately
face similar situations to you.
Yeah, and I know that, and they're not able to come forward even at this point to share their story, to even to start their recovery process as a victim and reclaim their true identity, reclaim their humanity, their source, the goodness and pureness that they feel inside of themselves. They're not even able to do that. I know, because by the grace of Swamiji, I've been able to heal. I've been able to be protected by this ecosystem. And even after so many 5 years, I was able to take refuge in the Adi Kailash and start to re-engage myself with life, actually, and heal myself from the
Survivor.
worst kind of trauma, from the worst kind of, depression, from suicide attempts. Like, I was extremely, I was extremely vulnerable, weak, and victimized. And Swamiji had literally given me a blessing, blessed me to heal and recover. Has given me such a beautiful way to.
And that is the reason you were actually, I'll just want to take one step back. Because of Swamiji's empowerment and strength, that was a reason you were able to stand up for yourself and fight back and actually file a case for your rape. Go ahead.
Exactly. And it was not because I was even after, I can say, even after I had filed a case, I wanted to fight for my right and against what Vinay had done to me. So I filed the case. I asked my parents. We had gotten all the resources to be able to file the case. And thankfully, in 2012, Vinay was sentenced to, with all the evidence and the testimony my sharing after going to court, after a 2-year court battle, basically, we're finally able to win the case in 2012. And we, of course, we have the legal papers even to show that of his sentencing. He was sentenced to 57 months in the Washington State prison, and which is actually one of the worst prisons in the whole in the whole of United States. And he was after that deported to India. And
so this was, unfortunately, you were one of the only victims who was able to actually file a case and win your case. Most of the other victims are probably silenced by now, and unfortunately, he's not the only conspirator. Right.
Yeah. And they're still absolutely silenced. And ultimately, that is why I'd like to share my story, share what I'd gone through, and share ultimately what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism sacrificed for protecting each and every one of us. And I'd like to say also that in the case, like, I had gone through, the Vinay had successfully convinced his defense lawyers that I was brainwashed, that everything about, and he was trying to convince what kind of, scheme that he was trying to do. He had convinced his lawyers, and I had to undergo one of the most brutal interrogations that the court in Washington State has ever witnessed. And even my lawyer and the prosecutor even said that it was one of the worst cross examinations that they've ever seen against a child. And I guess I was 16 years old, but it was one of the most brutal ways to interrogate.
Despite you being the victim, you were the one who was interrogated in the situation.
Yeah, in court, they were asking me questions, like asking me these absolutely foul questions against my guru. They were forcing me, trying to push me to tell that I'm lying for Swamiji, and trying to say that I'm trying to file a case against Vinay, which is, of course, the truth of what happened, and that I'm lying against Vinay because, Swamiji is trying to protect himself or whatever it was. And that was absolutely not the case. Vinay had tried to even get me tested to prove that I was brainwashed, means psychologically tested to prove that I was brainwashed. Even those tests in the legal court in the US didn't go through. And even in the legal court, the attorneys and everyone said that this is not valid because she was, there's so many reasons. They were actually saying that the Hindu ecosystem, everything. Yeah,
so you were saying you were being brainwashed by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who was nowhere even in the same vicinity, and Vinay, who was continuously daily seeing you day in and day out, manipulating and talking to you nonstop, was innocent in this situation.
Exactly.
he was presenting himself in that way.
And I'd like to also tell the viewers and make sure that this is very clear known, because perhaps of USA court and the maybe a slightly more straightforward processes in the USA. The cases in the USA, because I had filed a case as a victim and as a child, I filed a case against Vinay. After that, subsequently, the California state had recognized that Vinay Bharadwaj was a attacker, abuser, a child molester and rapist, and they recognized that. They saw that the cases that he was filing in the United States were false, and they stopped it, and he was fined $50 million.
The cases against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism,
Yes.
the same cases that he had filed in India.
Exactly. The same cases that were filed in India, the same cases that were, and actually it's not that in India victims did not stand, because there are victims who stood and didn't get justice.
Victims of Vinay Bharadwaj and his co-conspirators.
Yes, and of the co-conspirators and his and the other leaders of the anti-Hindu militant forces. Each and every one of them, victims did stand. I'd like to name some names: Ma Nityananda Mayi Swami and Ma Nitya Supriyananda Swami, Ma Nitya Achalananda Swami, Ma Nitya Bhaktikananda Swami, Ma Nitya Jnanatmananda Swami. All of them are victims who stood, who filed cases, who did file, but the judicial system, the media, the corruption which is inherent in the system is not seeing that, did not deliver the justice. That is why it came to the point where we had to go to every single opportunity, every single place. There's no justice still served for the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism for what happened.
Or any of the victims of the ASMT community, any of the women, any of the children who were victims of the anti-Hindu elements and who were victims of the co-conspirators who were trying to attack the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who were trying to destroy the ASMT community by targeting women and children, by targeting the most vulnerable population within the community.
Exactly. And I just would like to present to the viewers the direct contrast between the United States, what happened there, and what's happening back home in the place where Hinduism originated, where Hindus, you would expect that Hindus would be celebrated and welcomed and at least given proper human decency. But in the United States, the same cases, the same thing was treated in a much more straightforward way. And I'm not asking for favors, of course, just be straightforward and deliver justice where it's needed. And yes, that contrast is extremely
dark and apparent.
Yes, but yes,
what the US was able to deliver, the justice that you were able to receive in the US, other victims who were living in India did not receive that same justice, did not receive the justice that they deserved for the suffering that they went through at the hands of the anti-Hindu militant forces.
Yes, and after 5 years, I came back to 5 years I was living in the United States. We were just trying to be trying to be involved in the temple in USA. I was thinking that I wanted to go to college and so forth, but it came to the point where I was needing recovery, needing healing from trauma. So I decided that I would come to Adi Kailash Sarvagna Peetham in India, in Bengaluru, and just take refuge and start to heal myself and at least start to regain some kind of a feeling of purity and goodness in my soul. And in the Adinam, with that ecosystem, is such a powerful ecosystem that and the community and being able to be trained, guided by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and also by the loving, beautiful community that is all that literally lives and exists there. I was able to finally find that in my life and feel powerful like I did when I was, before everything had happened before, and when I was, 7 years old.
Yes.
I
So after nearly 5 years, maybe 6 years of suffering from maybe what you can call as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, you were able to finally find that healing after returning back to Swamiji's homes, to the Adinam in Bangalore, to Adi Kailash,
Yes,
and find recovery and um, finally find some healing and peace in yourself.
yes. And I can say more so than I have ever felt in my life. I was able to feel hope for my life and the future. And I wanted I wanted to dedicate my life to at least what Swamiji has given me, to give that to other women and children, and wanted to live for that because I felt very strongly that there was nothing else that was worth living for. And
Mm-hmm.
that gave me purpose in life, which was the most powerful thing. So, but
So,
unfortunately,
so after returning,
after, yes, after having been through, after having gone back to India, even then, in so many different, every single year, every few months, we would undergo attack as a whole community. In Trishulam, in Trishulam, Chennai, where I was living in Trishulam, Chennai on a project to work on the biography of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. And I was living there. While I was living there, we were brutally attacked by a gang, by like literally a mob. It was a mob lynching attempt, I can say very clearly, and stoned like literally the Salem witch trials. We were stoned, and we had to all take hiding inside of our the camps where we were staying.
so who? Sorry, I want to interrupt you for a moment. So in Trishul Madinam in Chennai, you were staying there working on a project, and during that time, you were attacked by who exactly, and what was the situation? Can you just quickly explain to the viewers exactly what had happened and why it was happening?
Yes. So what was happening ultimately there was, it was a land dispute, again, what we can is what they were trying to say. But ultimately, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was trying to establish in a very impoverished and neglected community a Hindu ecosystem to empower the community. And it was very clear that the anti-Hindu militant forces had wanted to literally destroy that, and because of that they had created so much of media hatred. And just they also had,
Incited hatred in the local community, and so much of
exactly, yes, and they had instigated mob violence against the women who were living there. We were all women, and we're all sannyasis. We're all Hindu women, sannyasis or Hindu nuns who had taken up all of this as a lifestyle. And it was just devastating to see that after everything, after having gone through everything, there was still more we were going through. And no matter where we go, every single month, every single few months, it's happening again and again. And on social media, the trolls and the hate that spreads is just vile and inhumane, but absolutely desensitized to the world, to the public, to the mainstream knowledge. And that ultimately is why we need to, why, even though today, after such a long time, we have been, the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was recognized by the UN. Still, there's so much more we need to do in order to revive
get
Kailasa
justice.
and get justice and also protect Hindu women, a dying culture, and a genocide which is completely unseen.
A silent genocide that most Hindus themselves do not know about. The attack on the ASMT community and the women and children of the ASMT community are not aware of the ongoing attack, the ongoing genocide of their own community, of the entire ASMT community, who, by the grace of the Supreme Pontificate of Hinduism, is reviving this tradition, this Vedic tradition, this Hindu tradition that would be left unseen to the world if it was not for the work and mission of the Supreme Pontificate of Hinduism.
Yes, exactly. And once again, I'd really like to plead to all the viewers. First of all, I really thank you for having listened to my story. And Manati Purna Priyananda, really thank you for helping me share this story, helping me be comfortable to share with all the viewers my story about what happened and the truth in the most real form. And I'd like to thank all the viewers for taking your time, for being listening during this time, and for allowing me to express my story completely. And I request each and every one of you to stay listening, to take action, at least in the form of sharing even the link where the UN has recognized the persecution against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. We need to make at least this known to the world, known to every single media channel that continuously poses hate against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, known to so many different anti-Hindus, the criminals out there, that we are there still, and we will continue to contribute to the world. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism will continue no matter what. And I'd really request...
Yes, and the violence that the ASMT community has faced, and the women of the ASMT community have faced, and the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has faced, has been finally recognized to the world through the UN. And it is our responsibility now to share this with everyone, to share what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has undergone over the past 2 decades of non-stop attack and persecution, simply for trying to revive this sacred tradition, simply trying to empower Hindu women, Hindu children to live this enlightenment lifestyle. Yes.
So I once again thank all of the viewers for listening and giving your time. And
we will be back at 8 a.m. IST for another segment to hear more about the persecution against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the ASMT community and the women and children of the ASMT community. Yes. So thank you all for your time, and please do join us at 8 a.m. IST. Thank you. Nityanandam.
Thank you. Nityanandam.
Paramashivoham Om Nityananda Paramashivoham Om Nityananda Paramashivoham Paramashivoham Om Nityananda Paramashivoham Paramashivoham. Om Nityananda 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 Paramashivoham.
unconsciousness. When they happen in you, due to your chemicals and hormones ups and downs, it is powerlessness. When it happens in you, out of your free will and consciousness, it is powerfulness. That's all. When you fall into sleep, it is powerlessness. When you enter into sleep, it is powerfulness. When you fall into dream, it is powerlessness. When you decide to dream, it is powerfulness. So I've added the ultimate powerfulness, Turyatita, in your whole being and doing. Manifest all the powers. Understand, power manifestation is nothing but cognitive shift. It is not work. It is cognitive shift. Understand? It is just cognitive shift. It's not work. Work is a 4-letter word. Power manifestation is cognitive shift. Playing with life. Playing with being alive.
Bhagavan beautifully described what is power manifestation. The science of power manifestation. It is a science because each one of us can manifest and it is repeatable. And the evidences to support the science of power manifestation, which is authentic, time-tested, scientific and foolproof. Shastra Pramana, the scriptural references, the eternal unchangeable truth revealed in the source scriptures, the Vedas and Agamas. We'll be going through the Apta Pramana. Apta Pramana are the experience of the Rishis, Munis, Ganas, Nayanamas, Alvars, Siddhas. All of them are authority of Hinduism. The Vedic Rishi and the scientist who time-tested and verified the science of power manifestation. Atma Pramana, account of His Divine Holiness, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, this millennium's avatar's personal experience of power manifestation. Bhagavan's very own Leelas, mapping to Shastra Pramanas. Shakshi Pramana, experience of the millions of disciple devotees, followers, initiated by Bhagavan into the science of power manifestation. Bhagavan beautifully said, whoever comes to Kailash Koti and manifesting power group, simply he will manifest all the abundance and auspiciousness, manifesting the powers of Paramashiva. Pratyaksha Pramana, the scientific study measuring the effect of being in the enlightened state. Again and again, Bhagavan beautifully gives us the pramana to understand the depth of the cognition, where we can start manifesting from human to superconscious being, the space, state, powers, and superconscious space of Paramashiva. Let's go to the Shastra Pramana.
76 to 78. Maranam ghadyate tena sakenapi na ghadyate tasya syat paramasiddhe animadi guna prada vayussannatadate dehe rasavriddhir bhaved dhruvam akashapanakajagalptiyusamapi vadhate Maranam ghadyate tena sakenapi na ghadyate tasya syat paramasiddhir animadi guna prada vayuh sanacharate dehe rasavriddhir bhaved dhruvam akashapanakajagalaptiyusamapi vadhate.
Beautifully from the Shastra Pramana, the scriptural reference for the power of Ashta Maha Shakti, power of decreasing the size of others, Anima Shakti. Anima Shaktis, this is described in the Shiva Samhita 5.7678. Bhagavan Paramashiva says, death is eaten by him, he is eaten by none. He manifests the highest powers such as Ahima, Mahima, Lahima, Garima, etc. The Vayu, the wind energy, moves equally throughout his body. The juice of his body also increased. The nectar excluding from the eternal lotus also increased in him. Bhagavan Paramashiva beautifully says how death is eaten by him, he is eaten by none. Bhagavan beautifully gives an example of the river Ganga. The river Ganga, when you place a stick in Ganga, the ant, when it sees it, it looks as though it is Ganga is there with the boundary of the stick. But when a bird comes in and sees there from the other side, it says, oh, there is another side of Ganga and it is divided by a stick. And if humans come by, we understand that Ganga is not divided by the stick. The Ganga is floating in the stick is floating in Ganga. But the reality is the Ganga cannot be divided or cannot be seen as only one dimension, but it is just flowing in a beautiful way. Bhagavan beautifully says how each one of us, when a higher being comes in, the dimension that we see is not that the other being sees us. There's only one strand difference between the chimpanzees and us, but we can do and manifest the highest reality, but they don't even understand one instruction. Same way, the dimensions, what we understand is only from our reality. But there are multiple more dimensions that exist that we are not aware of. For example, the paper is kept on a flat surface. The ant only thinks as a length and breadth. But when the paper is taken and stacked on each other, the ant is not able to see, so it thinks it has disappeared. Same way for us, we know only 4 dimensions that we can see as a person in length, breadth, time, and space and place. All this we can see, but more than that, if something else, the dimension that is existing, higher dimensions, we think it disappeared, like how Manikavachika disappeared into Nataraja or Andal disappeared into Venkateshwara. Simply we think it is disappeared, but actually they have in a higher reality. They merged into oneness with Paramashiva. How is that possible that we are not able to see? Is because we are deluded by what we have as our reality. When we wake up from this reality, the death is eaten by him. Only when we decide to live only in this reality, we are constantly given to this death and birth cycle. When we are waking up from this reality, understanding that everything that exists has a higher reality, and understanding everything is Paramashiva, everyone, everything that exists as Paramashiva, manifesting as Parashakti. When we understand and look and start perceiving everything in a higher dimension, then we are able to perceive things also in a higher dimension. Then he is eaten by none. Manikavaskar is not eaten by the deity, but he disappears into higher reality, higher existence. Not just living as a human, as body, but into the higher existence of the reality. And this can be experienced when you are in the oneness with Paramashiva. All the powers, Ashtama Siddhi, simply manifest as reality. Bhagavan beautifully says he's born with the Ashtamaha Siddhis as reality. And the wind energy moves equally throughout his body. The juice of the body also increased. The nectar exuding from eternal lotus. They become eternal. They become the higher reality. How they exist as Paramashiva, as quantum, as the ultimate reality. And this is possible for each one of us to experience if we start living step by step. These are the methods given in the Shastra that how one can experience the oneness with Paramashiva, live that as the reality. We can manifest that as the reality again into our existential reality as Paramashiva manifests through all of us as auspiciousness and abundance. Let's go to the Apta Pramanam. Apta Pramanas are the Rishis, Munis, Ganas, Nainamas, Alvars, Siddhas who have manifested all the powers of Paramashiva. Lord Balarama once visited Gokula to meet his friends and relatives. He met his parents and the gopis who inquired about Krishna. Lord Balarama gave Lord Krishna a sweet message to them. He was playfully with gopikas going to the different places, and he saw Yamuna. He told Yamuna to come. Yamuna did not come. He stripped the Yamuna into small tributaries. He cut her, split the whole thing, and she became very small tributaries, and she surrendered to Lord Balarama and said, forgive herself for her arrogance, and simply Balarama blessed, and after that she, even now, Yamuna river flows through many channels cut by Lord Balarama, which happened in those days. Still she stays like that. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 63. Text 26. Beautifully, all this was possible, just splitting the river or joining the river or manifesting the river Ganga from as Shivajata. All these possibilities simply exist as reality. Bhagavan beautifully made Lord Nataraja, the deity, in 2005, October 12th, enter into the Garbha Mandir so beautifully, even though the door was smaller size. The door was only 6 feet 10 inches. The deity is 6 feet. The door was 6 feet 8 inches, and the deity was 6 feet and 10 inches. When the devotees measured everything and went back to Bhagavan and told, like, this cannot enter the door, Bhagavan said, no problem, he will enter. And they didn't know, they thought they didn't measure properly, so they went and measured again and came back and said, how can it enter? And he said, no, he told Nataraja, okay, you come, and said, and the deity simply manifested the power of Anima. It just shrunk and it went inside. Again they measured after it went inside. And again they saw the deity is a 6 feet and 10 inches. The door is 6 feet and 8 inches. They still don't know how it managed to fit in the whole thing. But really, Nataraja himself shrunk and came back to the size to enter into the door. Even now, such beautiful experience is held by all the devotees, witnessing this ultimate power of Paramashiva, demonstrating the power of Anima. Simply, all this is possible when we understand the higher science. Here, Shakshi Pramana. Shakshi Pramana are millions of disciple devotees, followers all around the world, manifesting the powers of Paramashiva, initiated by Bhagavan himself. Here, Bhagavan beautifully, the devotee beautifully explains how she has sculpted her nose, her cheeks by reducing or increasing the size, and simply she had posted the picture thanking Bhagavan that beautifully all this has become reality in her. All these great signs was just given to us as beautiful signs of our manifestation and oneness with Paramashiva. All of us can manifest this ultimate reality. Here one more demonstration of the Rudras who have manifested the power of Mahima and beautifully lifting the extraordinary weight, thrice his size, thrice his weight, and he was able to manifest the power. Let's witness the power manifestation.
I don't know how long he's been training for, but 120 pounds more. 54 kgs. And on the bar, as I mentioned earlier, I got a little excited talking about this, is 115 kgs. And just to put this into perspective, I actually haven't lifted this weight in over 3 years. So what he's going to be doing is something I haven't trained and done in 3 years. And so I'm excited to see this. What he'll be comparing is up against, and again, this is very logical and there's a lot of numbers involved. He's lifting roughly 120 pounds more than somebody that is a beginner, which is completely insane because I'm assuming he hasn't been training, if I don't know how long he's been training for, but I don't think he's been training very long. And so 120 pounds more than a beginner he'll be lifting, and he's lifting a weight that I haven't lifted in over 3 years. So I'll let him take this.
So that's great. Srinivasa Maharaj, you can come up in the front. You can see Srinivasa Maharaj is getting into the position. As you can see, Srinivasa Maharaj has lifted.
I don't mean to be a stickler for form and all this, but when it comes to training, form is everything. You're going to get much more power if you have like exact form. And I can say his form was not correct, but it didn't matter. That's what's shocking, is that you were able to somehow muster the strength without having the correct base.
And Srinivasa Maharaj is just 54 kgs, and he has lifted over 115 kgs just like that without any effort.
So beautifully, we have seen the Maharaj lift the weight. Now we are going to, each one of us going to experience the power of Anima. What we are going to do, if you have a camera, please start recording as a video. If you have timestamp app, download the app and start recording with the timestamp. If you have the Kantamala and you have the locket, please apply the Jnananjan in your third eye and your temples. If you do not have Basma or Kumkum, that is beautiful, that you can apply. Bring awareness to your third eye and again record the weight of the object. We are going to do the increase of the weight and decrease of the weight, sorry, Anima power. So you can measure on a scale, either you can the weight or the height. You can measure the weight or the height to change the size of the object. So if you have a partner, you can do it on the partner. If you don't have a partner, you can do it on an object also. So, but do it twice and measure it correctly, how many units it is, and is it happening the same both the times. Record it, take a picture of it, and beautifully we'll enter into the meditation. And at the end of the cycle also measure it twice so that it is very authentic. We are only manifesting power of Paramashiva. There is nothing to prove whether what we are doing and how we can logically make it happen. So do not use any external maze to increase the length or the height or the weight of the object. Do it very authentically, so you will be so surprised how simple and how amazing your space of oneness can manifest as powers. So sit straight with the head, neck and spine into straight line. Please understand this is a beautiful meditation that Bhagavan has given for us to connect to Bhagavan and manifest all the auspiciousness. And all of us sitting in Kailash Courtyard in front of presence of Bhagavan and manifesting these powers brings us so much of abundance, healing, auspiciousness and bliss. So let's do it authentically. Let's visualize Paramashiva in our third eye and bring PARASHAKTI with her 25 heads and 75 eyes and 50 hands. Bhagavan says if you sit like that doing the puja, you will be such a oneness with the deities that you are offering. Simply you will merge into the oneness. That is what beautifully Bhagavan has given us these instructions to experience that higher state of consciousness, the superconscious space. Absolute unclutching from anything you have, any verbalization, any thought current, any of the confusion, anything that we have. There is nothing for us to achieve, nothing for us to do, or nothing for us to manifest, but just enjoy the presence of Paramashiva. Simply seeing the manifestation is the ultimate reality. Bhagavan himself being the charioteer for Arjuna. Arjuna doesn't have to do anything except enjoy Krishna's presence. Enjoying, it's like the whole president of a country coming and driving you to your place. That is how you are in the space of oneness with Paramashiva. So hold that joy, hold that beautiful space of oneness with Paramashiva that He Himself will manifest through you as your reality. Suddenly you feel like, oh my God, I am the son or daughter of the $1 trillion dad, and he is driving you to everywhere, simply showering you with all the abundance and all the auspiciousness and all the healing. So hold that beautiful space of oneness and continuously chant the Mahavakya, entangling with Bhagavan. All this starts with entangling with Bhagavan and chanting the Mahavakya, understanding everything that exists as Paramashiva, everything that is manifested as PARASHAKTI, and simply your will to hold that as a powerful cognition will make you manifest all the auspiciousness and the power of anima also, decreasing the size of the object. Ashtamaha Shakti. So let's start chanting, vibrating the whole being, vibrating with the Mahavakya. Stand from your navel center and listen to your chanting. Put away your gadgets for a few minutes. Get into the deep oneness with Paramashiva and start chanting and holding the only oneness space for a few minutes with Paramashiva. Experience the extraordinary happening of bliss that Paramashiva is just flowing through you. Let's start chanting the Mahavakya.
Nityananda Paramashivam. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour, let the Varni open up, manifest in all of us. Let Paramashiva overflow, manifest the powers in all our third eyes. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. 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 Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour, let the Varni open up, manifest in all of us. Let Paramashiva overflow, manifest the powers in all our third eyes. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. Om Paramashivam. Nityananda 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 Paramashivam. Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour, let the Varni open up. Nityananda Paramashivam. Nityananda Paramashivam. Nityananda Paramashivam. Nityananda Paramashivam. Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour, let the Varni open up, manifest in all of us. Let Paramashiva overflow, manifest the powers in all our third eyes. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. 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 Om नित्यानन्द परमशिवोऽहम् ॐ 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 नित्या
So beautiful. Whatever the prasada that Devi has given us, please verify it authentically. Every time you manifest the powers, deep gratitude to Bhagwan. What he has given you is a glimpse of your superconscious space. So authentically verify and take a picture of it. If you have not manifested, start holding the space. We do not write the exam and then start seeing I'll do good in exam. First, when we start studying itself, we say, oh, I'm going to clear that. I'm going to top it. I'm going to be the best. What especially our favorite subjects. Same way, power manifestation is also same thing. You manifest when you start believing that you are a manifester. We are all manifester. Bhagavan says, whether you manifest or not, any powers, you are manifesting constantly. You are Paramashiva, and that cannot be denied, because otherwise we are just a matter. If we are consciousness, then we have to manifest. If we are matter, then nothing can be moved. Matter does not move. The tables, the chairs, everything is just like that. So something is there which is consciousness and which is moving us and which is manifesting constantly. So we have to manifest. If I can manifest with my body, manifesting different things, constantly growing, constantly regenerating, constantly doing everything, I can manifest all these powers also, because they are also part of me. Only thing we have to drop is our incompletions, and the only idea that this world, what we perceive through five senses, the dimensions that we know is the only dimensions that we are in. If we drop that and understand that we are higher dimensions, Bhagavan says 11 dimensions that we can experience, then the ultimate reality also is hidden in us, which can solve everything and much more, which is infinity and which is absolute. Nothing can be removed from it and nothing can be added from it. We are already complete and we are already existing forever and eternal. We just need to understand how we exist in the quantum space as Paramashiva, as PARASHAKTI. All we need to understand is surrender our identity, the little layers that we are holding, thinking that is manifesting anything in our life, dropping all that and understanding Paramashiva is my ultimate reality, and holding that blissful space again and again, the auspicious space in you. Each one of you is a kalpatru. Simply you can manifest any reality, Bhagavan says, just by holding that space of Paramashiva, Parashakti. You will start manifesting that very reality. And simply you can understand that the higher reality is just the natural way of existence. How the trees and the nature exist. All of us can manifest all the powers of Paramashiva naturally and beautifully. Let's get into the beautiful space of oneness with Paramashiva. Have another cycle of few minutes. Let's put away our gadgets. We are doing the power of Ashtamaha Shakti, decreasing the size of the object. Either it can be your height or an object. Measure it twice, whether you're measuring the length or the weight of the object. And after the Mahavakya, you can again measure the increase or the decrease which has happened. We are doing the power of Anima, decreasing the size of the object. So please go ahead and mark the details so that at the end of the cycle, you can again take a picture or video record it and share it with the world. All these great powers removes so much of incompletion and brings so much of abundance and auspiciousness in each of us to experience the superconscious space. How the yoga prepares the body and aligns to the cosmic geometry. Same way, all these power manifestation again and again tells you, you are consciousness, you are Paramashiva, you are Parashakti. You can manifest all the powers of Paramashiva, heal yourself and others, heal and manifest abundance, auspiciousness in all of us. And beautifully, Bhagavan says, He Himself is in the courtyard and His presence can be experienced. The oneness can be experienced by each one of us, manifesting as this reality. So let's sit straight with the head, neck and spine in a straight line. Deeply connect to Bhagavan. No other verbalization or visualization except Bhagavan. And chant the Maha Vakya from your navel center, melting into oneness with Paramashiva, forgetting even your body and mind for few minutes, being in the oneness space and in Bhagavan's presence, completely dissolving in Him, will manifest as your reality. Let's start chanting the Maha Vakya, manifesting the power of Ashta Mahashakti.
Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour, let the Varni open up, manifest in all of us. Let Paramashiva overflow, manifest the powers in all our third eyes. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. 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 Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour. Let the Om Nityananda Paramashivam. 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 Let Paramashiva's third eye manifest in all our third eyes. Let the Amrita pour. Let the Varni open up. Manifest in all of us. Let Paramashiva overflow, manifest the powers in all our third eyes. Om Nityananda Paramashivam. 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 Om Nityananda Paramashivam.
So beautiful. Whatever we have experienced, the prasada, please share it with the world. Again and again, so many billions of people really need healing, and all of us are going to take it to them. All of us posting even one line and thanking Bhagwan again and again. The gratitude is the shortest distance. When you understand the importance, you will have such gratitude towards what he is doing. When you understand any of the field, that when you are in such a gratitude will start flowering in you, because you understand the depth of what Bhagwan is offering to each one of us. And these prasada, when you share with the reality with others, simply that also adds to your auspiciousness and abundance. Please make sure at least post one line of how you manifested. If you have a picture of increasing or decreasing the size of the object, you can share that also in tinyurl.com/powermanifestation. And if you see a $sign at the end of the YouTube, you can offer your gratitude. Each one of us, when we share our gratitude to Kailasha and thank Bhagwan for all this that is offering in spite of what is going on, and simply again and again connecting you back to yourself, the Paramashiva space to Bhagwan makes you in such a deep oneness and manifest all auspiciousness, removing all the karma patterns from us. Again and again surrender to Bhagwan's lotus feet and thank Bhagwan. Whatever we have manifested, understood as powerful cognition, or manifested as powers, or received any prasada, Let's surrender to Bhagwan's lotus feet and thank Bhagwan from the deep yearning that asking Paramashiva to make Paramashiva as your existential reality. And thank each one of you here to be there till the end of the session today to manifest all the space of abundance and auspiciousness. Thank you so much. Let's end this space with the Purna Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Bhagavate Sri Nityanda Paramashivam Padukarpanamastu Om Nityanandam. Thank you so much. Again, we'll have the satsangs, darshans, and powerful cognitions, and so many things that Bhagavan is offering and showering in on each of us. After all that, we'll have again the power manifestation session, the deep meditation that Bhagavan himself manifesting through all of us will be conducted. So please stay tuned and thank you so much. Nitya.